Well, I'd like to announce our next Fellows Seminar is being delivered by one of our Fellows, Professor Ariadne Argyraki, who is a Professor of Geochemistry and Health at the Laboratory of the Economic Geology and Geochemistry in the University of Athens. And she'll be talking today about where volcanism meets human activity, environmental geochemistry in a multi-stressor marine system. So thank you very much for your time today, Ariadne, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is very nice to be here again in the Fellows Talks. I think it has been about 2 years since I last participated in this series. And this actually, maybe it is something like a continuation from the previous talk, because it is again about the Nexus Monarch project, Horizon Europe project we had, and we just completed actually. So I will start by acknowledging all the people that participated and the partners, and many of the things that I will show, it is not my work really, but it is the result of this collaborative input for many, many people, much more than the ones that I put in these slides, and students, I have to say also, and early career researchers. So it is relevant, very relevant to the SEGH community also. So first, I would like to start with the question, why do we care about this type of multi-stressor environments? Like environments, we have the natural pressures from volcanism, but also we have pressures due to anthropogenic activities. So everyone that is working in the physical sciences knows very well that nature continuously balances harmony and chaos. And these examples of the volcanic environments are very good examples of what is happening and how it is happening. However, these volcanic systems are not isolated geochemical laboratories, as we call them as geologists anymore. And this is because on top of the hydrothermal inputs, all the trace elements that come out of the systems, the acidification, we have many anthropogenic pressures. We have tourism, we have shipping, mining, wastewater outlets going into the sea, and marine litter. So they are very, very interesting for people studying environmental geochemistry and much more environmental geochemistry and health. Now let's see where we stand geologically. I will explain a bit about the Hellenic Volcanic Arc. So we are in an area between Europe, Africa, and Asia geographically. And everybody knows that what happens here is a very active margin of tectonic plates. We have the Africa plate moving upwards this way, and then we have the Eurasian plate moving this way in general. But it is not that simple. It's a bit more complex because this block, the Anatolian block as we call it, it comes like a western, it has a western direction and comes this way. That is why we have a bending arc forming here, the Hellenic arc, as we say. And on this arc, we have the development of the Hellenic Volcanic Arc, which is a young, relatively geologically speaking, a young volcanic arc, 5 million years to present. And this has been developed in pre-alpine to quaternary continental crust of the Hellenic subduction system, as we call it. And actually, what is happening here is that we have the remaining oceanic crust of the Tethys Sea, this ancient ocean, which is subducting and this is attached to the continental African plate. So we have actually here oceanic crust subducting. And we see this also in the geochemical fingerprint of the Hellenic Volcanic Arc, which actually forms right here. And another somehow peculiar geological aspect is that we have the sedimentary arc here, but right behind we have the back arc molassic basin, the Cretan basin, as we see in the next slide, which shows us now the bathymetric mark. So how does this translate to the bathymetry of the area? We have Crete here, and behind Crete to the north, we have these deep waters of the Cretan basin. And right to the north of this, we have the formation of the volcanic arc. We see very nice forming arc extending from Methana Peninsula, Milos Islands, Santorini Islands, Nisyros and Kos Islands. And we have volcanic emanations in all these places here. So this is actually our study area. And we see here in this little map now the places that we have been sampling with the project. And we visited all 4 centers, let's say, Methana, Milos, Santorini, and Nisyros and Kos. And we did our sampling not by using oceanic vessels, but just doing it in the soft way, using sailing boats, snorkeling, visiting from the coastal areas. And we tried to do it also in a participatory way, involving local people. And this was relevant to my previous talk, the citizen science aspect of this project. So what we have done is that we have completed now 9 field campaigns, and we have in total 38 sampling stations. We have many different scientists participating, 32 scientists participated in these campaigns, and we took in total over 2,000 in situ measurements, and we collected over 500 collected samples of different kinds, because we want to cover this multidisciplinary area here of seawater monitoring by collecting data on climate-related parameters, on bioessential and toxic elements, data on litter, on organic pollutants, biodiversity, and radioactivity. So apparently there are many different laboratories involved and many different techniques and analytical techniques involved. But we want to have the best picture and the best combination of data of what happens to the environment and how can we monitor the environment in such a multi-stressor place. To select now how we go about by selecting the techniques, the methods, etc., we examined their relevance, quality, feasibility, and cost, and we tried to work by taking into account all these 4 factors during the development of the project. Now, the ways we collected the data were every possible way you can imagine, in the soft way that I described before. So we worked from the shore, we worked offshore, we collected by snorkeling, by diving, by sailing, rowing. We collected samples during the night because we were late and we had to work during the night under the moonlight, not very bad. And also, we used a wide range of sampling gear to do our sampling. So we used from high-tech sensors to really frugal tools that we improvised and we tried to develop with all the available materials we had at hand. Now, I put this photograph here because it's a sample that is a water sample collected from the sailing boat, and we managed to get it as deep as 500 meters. This is how deep we managed to get the Niskin bottle and close the Niskin bottle after several attempts during the late night. And this place is outside the caldera of Santorini, so somehow in the middle of nowhere. We consider it a big achievement, this sample. That's why I put it here in the little photograph in the middle. So the thing is that we have these overlapping geochemical signatures, and we try from our data to read this complicated data set. So from one hand, we have all the natural geochemical forcing because the hydrothermal systems are injecting several gases, and mainly it is carbon dioxide in this part of the world that is emitted, but lots of different metals and metalloids also. And also we have this local acidification phenomena, and we have been measuring pHs down to 5, 4.5, 5, which is quite low for the sea environment. Also, we have typical mineral precipitating, and we also have, and we knew this from previous research, that there are specific microbial niches and specialization of microbes living in these hydrothermal environments. And the interesting thing with all this research was that on top of all this, we have the tourism. Typical example, all these huge cruise tourist boats coming into Santorini. We have even places that there is ongoing mining, like the biggest smectite mine in Europe that is in Milos Island, and a very dense ferry boat and cargo routes, emitting also lots of wastewater, plastic accumulation in the sea, and all the coastal development of all the little islands that they are becoming more and more developed. So we have this balance, and the question was, is it tilting towards the human pressures or the natural geochemical forcing that was there much before the humans? So I will talk a bit about all the parameters. I try to make it brief and give you just a flavor of the main things that we have discovered, let's say. So related to the climate, we have been measuring temperature, turbidity, pH, alkalinity, conductivity, and dissolved oxygen. And we have been trying to do this by balancing feasibility and cost by different methods and sensors, etc. I will show some results of the sensors that we used. There is even visually, you can see, the example here is from the Methana Peninsula. You can actually see the hydrothermal plume coming out from the hot springs that are here, right here in the coastal area. And even with a drone, let's say, taking pictures, you can see this plume and how it changes temporarily. But what we did is that we used the sensors, and we were just crossing and doing these crisscross and zigzags in the affected, let's say, areas. And we we're measuring salinity, temperature, pH, turbidity, and dissolved oxygen by taking also the GPS coordinates. And in the end, we were able to see very fast this type of maps showing how these localized plume gradients are changing in real time. Overall, we observed that in the area that it is closer to the hot springs, we always have lower pH, higher temperatures, of course, higher turbidity, a bit lower dissolved oxygen, and also lower salinity, because we know that the hydrothermal system also involves the groundwater in this area. And then some geochemical data on trace elements in seawater. We tried to do if we can distinguish the natural from the anthropogenic inputs of these metals. So we measured for a range of elements, and we've been using ICP-MS and ICP-OES in doing this. I told you that the deepest sample came from 500 meters, but most of our samples are in very shallow waters, because this is where we have the emissions of the hot springs. And there are several elements, and a very good example is manganese and arsenic, that give you this fingerprint of the hydrothermal environment. We have very wide ranges of all the elements and trace elements, but here for these two elements, we see that they have a very good also correlation between them. You see here manganese and arsenic. Again, it is the example from Methana, the Methana environment. And this, of course, points to having similar geochemical circulation of these elements, probably due to the biosphere and the microbes that live in this area. We've been checking this data, and this is interesting maybe also for microscopy. So we've been testing this sampling and analytical uncertainty estimation by doing comparative measurements between samples collected by different partners of the project. So we have a series of data from the NKUA, which is our university, and then we have another series of data of samples collected and analyzed by NTNU, and we can see how close they are, or how far apart are. And this is very important for this project, because in a way we try to use this geochemical data we collected from the scientific missions in order to validate measurements we took when people from the area were sending us, for example, seawater samples to analyze. You see here the spread of the manganese and arsenic. You see the really wide range in concentrations that we have, the anomalous values, and you see here, for example, that these red dots are the samples from Methana, and we have the highest concentrations there. So it's a very good example of the fingerprinting, the hydrothermal fingerprinting by these two elements. And on top of this, we examined the sediment samples. So here you see typical examples of precipitates around the hot springs in the coastal areas, but also the weathering result and precipitates of the lavas and the hydrothermal, as a result of the hydrothermal interaction. We did lots of mineralogical analysis, and we always see this volcanic signature in the lithologies, and also the signature of the hydrothermal weathering products. However, we were able to pick the anthropogenic signal when we observe the samples in the micro scale. And another very good example about this is samples coming from Milos Islands. And here in these graphs, you see, okay, above here in the photographs, you see some particles that we identified with the scanning electron microscope. But here in these diagrams, you see the columns. The orange columns are areas that we don't have hydrothermal activity. And actually, they are samples collected from the port of Milos, where all the boats and ferry boats arrive. And you see here that for many of the elements, the anthropogenic signal, where there is no hydrothermal emanations, it is stronger than the natural signal. And this is typical of these small-scale observations in the smallest particles. We tried also to see how mobile are the hydrothermal metals. And to do this, we've been comparing total concentrations measured by XRF with pseudo-total concentrations listed with aqua regia. And of course, here we see only the major elements, but some of the major elements appear here also in the graph of the aqua regia concentrations. And we see that sometimes they are like magnitudes, orders of magnitudes differences between what we see with XRF and with aqua regia measurements. And here, of course, we continue to see more closely what happens with the trace elements because there is all the interest. Okay, moving on to organic pollutants and shipping here, the top place to study this is Santorini, but also the rest of the places, they're becoming more and more touristic. So here to get a flavor, in Santorini Islands, we have plus 2 million tourists every year. We have cruise ships going in and out the caldera all the time. And these ships, lately, they are discharging this scrubber material. And also have very dense sailboat traffic. So we have a mixture of all this in the seawater, and to have an evidence of what is happening, here you see that during the summer months, we have the highest loads of the sewage treatment loadings, and this goes very well hand in hand with the boat arrivals during the same months. So we collected not many samples because of the cost of the analysis, but we were able, with the help of the analytical laboratory of the chemistry department, to measure emerging contaminants in these waters. And we measured things like PAHs, organic pollutants, or potential scrubber-related compounds. And you see here an example of, actually this sample is from Methana Peninsula again, and you see that we have different identities of a range of different typical anthropogenic and exclusively anthropogenic pollutants going into this water. And of course, an exclusive anthropogenic pollutant is the marine litter, and also that mixes with the natural particles. So we've been trying to study microplastics and mesoplastics and macroplastics in this research. And we see that, of course, microplastics we did by collecting sand samples, where macroplastics were easily collected as floating pieces from the sailing boat. We had different approaches, like here, for example, we do a trench. We have like a 300 meters length of a line, and we walk along the line and we collect all the mesoplastics that we can identify. But also we were collaborating with diving clubs that they were collecting and categorizing litter from the bottom of the sea. And this was also a very good way to sensitize people, because everybody that saw what was coming out from this water, but taking like a closer look, a focus on how many different plastic types, plastic items come out in every survey, they get sensitized and they want more and more of these surveys. Now, if we want to try to make a connection with volcanism in terms of the plastic materials, we somehow observed that it's the volcanic geomorphology that influences litter trapping. The best example here is the Sarakinico Bay in Milos Island, a famous place that all the tourists want to go there because it's a new, beautiful, like moon scenery with these white rocks. There are actually volcanic tuffs reaching the sea and making these really deep engulfations. And this is where we had the most rich samples of little pieces of plastic. So you see this very nice white rocks, and then you go and you look closer and these little plastic pieces appear more and more. It's really striking. By the way, this bay, the Sarakinico Bay, is facing north. And because in the Aegean Sea we have the north winds prevailing, this is how all the litter and the little plastic pieces get trapped in these very deep gulfs. Biodiversity, data from the biology department, they managed to see that there is a clear hydrothermal also signal when they did their gene analysis. And also they discovered that there is a functional gene shift in the acidic zones. And actually, this means that the geochemistry drives the ecosystem structure, and a good outcome from the project was a new PhD, which is starting now, and it's our laboratory collaborating with a biology laboratory, trying to see how we can connect the geochemistry parameters with the ecosystem structure. And finally, an interesting also aspect of these marine volcanic environments is the radioactivity. Radioactivity, which is natural, and here it was the physics department measuring with a high resolution gamma ray spectrometer that they have been developing, so it can go inside the sea, and they stay there and measure for many, many hours in order to get the signal. The signal they get is mostly from natural isotopes, and during the course of this project, no extreme anomalies were found. But maybe this method is very, very useful for if we want to have signals from volcanic hazards, because apparently this signal can change, the isotopic signature can change if we have an unrest of the volcanic area, for example. So there are still many more open research questions, questions that the students participated in this project were coming up all the time. And this was very nice to see, because your project, then you know that it is somehow inspirational. So if the students are working, okay, are these hydrothermal metals that we are measuring bioavailable? Do anthropogenic signals mask natural baselines in some areas? Because the big picture we have is that the natural baseline, which is raised because of volcanism, sometimes it is more apparent, much more apparent than the anthropogenic signal. These plumes that we see, how stable they are seasonally, because as we were visiting, every time we were getting a different picture. And then can we define reference conditions in such environments? So overall, we saw that as I said, the hydrothermal activity is the most significant control of the trace metals in this particular place. But we have additional complexity because of the human activity. We see this close connection with the ecosystem and geochemistry that we are going to study through this new PhD. And of course, the big lesson that we learned is that the more we work together from multiple laboratories and multiple ways of viewpoints, the better it is for our research to study such multi-stressor environments. Of course, baselines are dynamic and they change, and that's why we would like to see this monitoring going on into the future. And of course, I thought that this is very appropriate for this seminar. Everybody recognized the role of environmental geochemistry and how relevant it is if you want to study such systems. So we had people from physics, we had engineers, and in the end of the day, everybody said, okay, environmental geochemistry is right in the center and really critical for these environments. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer your questions, or if you want to connect and ask me more things, especially people that will be watching the recording, this is my email and I'm always available. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trying to unmute. Thank you so much, Ariadne. Can we have a round of applause to say thank you? Oh, what a wonderful environment to work in. And the idea of sampling by snorkeling and diving and wading out, you are very, very fortunate. So can I take questions from anybody, please, for Ariadne? Oh. Can I get, Mike, do you want to ask a question? I'll let you go first.
Ariadne, I found that really very interesting, especially since I remembered going to Methana with you at the end of the environmental geochemistry conference a few years ago in Athens, and I've been to Santorini many years ago, so I could relate to the situations you were talking about. Obviously, you hit on one of my interests, that there were difference between the different samplers. And I wondered if you'd had duplicate samples within one organization and then duplicate samples between the organizations, and whether there was more variance between the labs than there were within one organization, and whether that would affect the interpretation in any way.
Yes. So in Methana, where we had the most times visiting because it's the nearest, I tried to do this. So I I was trying very hard to get to the number 8 of the duplicates, so we could run the ANOVA properly. And I think I have this data, but I haven't seen them, very closely yet. But yes, so it was in the design, and together with Marios Kostakis, actually, who is also participating in this project, and he is the one that did all the ICP-MS analysis also. We try to see how we can apply ANOVA to check differences between within and see, yes.
That's good. I could just add one little thing that the latest version of the ANOVA software calculates the confidence intervals. So even if you've got less than 8 duplicates,
Okay.
it'll tell you how big that confidence interval. So you could get away with 5, 6, 7, and then do the calculation.
Oh, very useful. Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. While we wait for somebody else to either put their hand up, or Alex, can I ask a question first before I come to you?
Yeah.
I was intrigued, Ariadne. You said one of that you could detect coffee-related contamination as well. What was that? Just from the wastewater, or what? What was that?
So the sample is seawater, but it is like coastal seawater. So it is affected, but you can see all these things if you do this high resolution liquid chromatography. They've been using really, cutting edge techniques in the in the chemistry department. So it is not wastewater, it is the seawater. The sample was seawater, yeah.
But as the coffee come from, it's from just coffee use in the region, and so we're seeing it in the seawater. Or is there some sort of processing or activity going on?
There are several coffee shops on the coast, I should say.
So there's their impact.
If it is, yes, the sample from the port, the Methana port is, yes.
Wow, that you pick that up significantly as a contaminant. Very interesting. Thank you, Alex. Sorry, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Fascinating. My interest is probably a little bit beyond this. Do you have any samples from north of the island arc onto the continental sides?
We have samples from citizen scientists.
Yeah.
Because when we put out the call, schools were the ones that responded the most, and some schools were outside the volcanic arc. So we have a network of schools. They've been sending samples, and they are reporting on microplastics that they are measuring. So like seawater samples, no, we don't have, because from the scientific missions we did not collect. But we have the network, let's say. I know why you are interested in this, I guess.
I know you do, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to compare the volcanic arc samples with samples, seawater samples that they are behind, and they are like behind the arc. Yes.
Okay, I'll be in further touch with you when you get them analyzed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Can I ask a very naive one? What is scrubbing water related to a boat? What you talked about rubber discharge? I probably should know what that is, but I don't.
Scrubbers are this new technology that has been developed in order to lower the air pollution. So they are trapping air pollutants, so they are not emitted in the atmosphere. And I think it is mostly relevant to the sulfur compounds. But in doing so, they are discharging this. It is trapped. It's something like a filter. It's trapped, but then it is discharged in the seawater. So there is a big discussion nowadays in Greece because apparently we have all this traffic. It's a matter of cost also because you can get the best quality, better quality diesel, which is free of this sulfur, but then it is much more expensive. So it's like the cheap alternative that everybody uses, and it is allowed by legislation, but it harms, or does it harm? It is a question, a scientific question, how much it harms the seawater ecology.
Thank you. No, I had no idea they kind of discarded the scrubbing waste products into the ocean. So thank you, thanks Ariadne.
Makes you wonder why they scrub it in the first place.
Well, it's offsetting it from one air to water, isn't it, in a way? But
yeah,
the world we live in.
There are publications, though, saying that it is the effect because of the dilution capacity of the ocean, and because the atmosphere can handle less.
Yeah.
In the end of the day, if you see the balance, it is the best option. No, but no, the best option is to use the good quality of petrol. But nowadays, petrol is another can of worms, let's say. Yeah.
But I mean, that's why the work you're doing, looking at baselines and looking at the fact that you can, you can discern an impact of this, the way they're disposing of some of the scrubber-based material is really relevant. So, because that can then hopefully help inform and change the dial on what happens to it going forward.
Yeah.
So, brilliant.
Okay. Yes, before we close, we try to publish this, and we try to publish all this in the Environmental Geochemistry and Health Journal. We are preparing some publications, and we have like a special collection. And hopefully we will manage to get this data out and everybody can read.
Fantastic. Well, unless there are any further questions, thank you so much for your time, Ariadne, and also thank you for those of you who have joined us live this afternoon. And obviously, we will post the seminar onto the website shortly. So thank you so much for your attention, and we'll let Ariadne have the rest of her afternoon back. Thank you.
I'm really glad there's the hardcore of SEGH here. Present. Thanks. Nice to see you all. Very nice.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Ariadne. Excellent.
Thank you.
Well done.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.